what your homework assignment was over. So starting with this is the most, this is the most important thing right here. That's kind of what I gave you to start out with. It gives you a way to switch back and forth. What do we call a number that can be written as a fraction? Rational. Okay, so you need to know this vocab because on the test it's going to say, write it as a rational exponent. And what is that asking you to do? Write it as a fractional exponent, okay? Now, we also need to know what this sign means right here. What does that little check marky sign look like? Or what is it called? Now, sometimes it's a square root. Sometimes it's a cube root, or a fourth root, or a fifth root. What do we call the sign itself, though? Starts with an R. It's a radical. It's a radical sign. So if they ask you to express your answer as a radical, you'll have to write it that way, okay? So starting off with this one right here, and you can use this little back and forth key. We have it in this form, but we want to turn it into this form. So what happens to the 2? It becomes the root, right? The number on the bottom becomes the root. So this is the square root of b. Now, a square root is a 2 root, right? We don't usually write a 2. It's not wrong, but usually if you write a square root sign, you like to put a 2 there. So b to the 1/2 is the square root of b. It's the same thing. It's just a different way of writing it. So now we're going backwards. We have it in this form. We need to go back to there. So look at this one right here. Where's the 3 going to go? To the bottom of the exponent fraction. So this is b to the 1/3, or b to the 1/3. It's the same thing. The cube root of b is b to the 1/3. Now these ones are a little bit different because b has an exponent under the radical. So it's not much harder. It's just, where does the m go? The number that's under the radical, where's it going to go if it's a fraction? On the top. And if you're going the other way, it's just going to become under the radical. So it kind of switches a little bit. Okay? So here, what is the root going to be? So we're starting with an n. What's n? 3. That n becomes the root. So it's going to be the cube root of b to the 4th. Now you can also write this. You can see this little or. I can put the cube root of b in parentheses, all raised to the 4th power. Those are the same thing. And you'll see that here in a little bit how that works, but just know that ahead of time. Now we're going to go backwards. I have it as a radical. I want to write it as a rational exponent. So where does m go? The 5 is going to be the top of the fraction. So this is going to be b to the 5/4. That's basically what this page is kind of quizzing you over. So let's do number 1, 16 to the 1/2. Now you can put that in your calculator and get an answer. It's going to say 4. But the directions tell you to write it as a radical. So remember, these tests have points. And part of the points of this problem are going to be your ability to write it as a radical first. So you need to be able to show your work on these tests. What is a 1/2 power? The same thing as the square root. So to write it as a radical, this is actually the square root of 16. And what is the square root of 16? 4. That's how you would show your work on a kind of easy problem like that. Okay, where does the 4 go if I want to write it as a radical? The number on bottom becomes the root in front. So this is the 4th root of x. And there's nothing to simplify there, that we're done with it, but at least you convert it to the other form and write it as a radical. Okay, number 3. Once again, there's that vocab. Write it as a rational or fractional exponent. So 2 to the. Now remember, if you don't remember, look up top. But the radical goes to the bottom of the exponent fraction. So this is 2 to the 4/2. And then you can simplify. What's 4/2? 2 to the 2 squared, which is 4. Now, you can just put 4 as an answer. You might get some credit. It's better than nothing. But if you want all of the points for that problem, because a problem like this is probably worth like 2 to 4 points, you'll want to show kind of the little steps in between. Okay. Number 4, the root becomes the denominator. X to the 5/10 reduces to x to the 1/2. Okay, now don't overthink number 5. Last class, let's say I gave you a problem like this last class on our exponent little minion page. Where would that x go? To the bottom of the fraction. So we called it 1 over, and then what happens to the 2 when it moves? It becomes positive. Okay? No different here. It's just a fraction. Don't overthink it. So this whole thing is going to go under 1. And then it's 16. What happens to the exponent? It becomes positive. So 1 over 16 to the 1/4. Now we do our little rule. So this becomes 1 over, convert it to a radical. That looks confusing to me. 16 to the 1/4, it's like what? I'm not very good with that. So let's convert it to a radical, because we're better with radicals usually. What root is that? The 4th root of 16. Now, if you don't know your 4th roots, basically that's asking you what times what times what times what, same number 4 times is 16. What is it? It's 2. Let's say it's a bigger number. We're not real good with these. Get out your calculator, because you're going to need to know how to type this in. If you want to do a 4th root, you're going to start with the number 4. You want to do a 5th root, you start with a 5, or 6th root is 6. Then you're going to hit math. Which of those do you think we're going to do? 5. You can see cube root, it's right there. But x root makes it whatever root you put in front. So if you hit 5, it becomes a 4th root. The 4th root of 16 is 2. So really this is 1/2. All that work for a 0.5. Okay, number 6. I'm going to do this kind of fast, but it's the 5th root of 243 to the 3rd. And I'm going to do this first. I'm going to make it smaller first. What's the 5th root of 243? Yeah, if you're not sure, so you get your calculator, type in a 5 math x root. 5th root of 243 is 3. So it's easier to make it smaller first, and then cube it. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Okay, a couple more. I'm going fast because this is homework. You should have gotten a good kind of idea of this. Last class when I had x squared times x to the 5th, what did we do to the exponents? We added them, right? That's x times x times x times x times x times x times x, which is 7x's, okay? No different. It's not an x, but it's the same base. They're both 8s. So we go 8. 8 stays the same, right? X stays the same. Even though it's an 8 now, it stays the same. And then what am I going to do to the exponents? Add them. They're fractions. The way we add fractions is we keep the common denominator. Or if it's not a common denominator, get a common denominator. And then we add the numerators. So 2 plus 4, 6. 6/3 is 2. Base squared is yo.
Would it be, because I did it where I changed it to the radical form, and then I multiplied it.
You can. It's probably harder, more work.
Would it not count if it didn't show my word?
It's hard to say. Yeah. What did we do last class when I had a base over a base? What did we do to the properties of exponents? We subtracted them. So the base stays the same. It's a b in this case. It could be an 8, it could be a 14, it could be a 2000. Stays the same. And then 7/5 minus 4/5 Common denominator, subtract the numerators is 3/5. Now, it doesn't tell you what form to write your answer in, but you could also write this as the 5th root of b to the 3rd. Same thing, different form. So if it asks you to write it a certain way, you write it the way that they ask. Okay, number 9. What did we do when I had an exponent raised to an exponent last class? Multiplied them. So that's x to the, now 3 times 1/2. The way we multiply fractions is straight across the numerators and straight across the denominators. That's 3/2. Keep it as a fraction. And the rest are pretty easy. What's 4 to the 1/2 power, or the 4th power to the 1/2 power? Multiply, you get 2, z to the 4th. Same thing we did last class, it's just a fraction. So you just got to remember your 5th and 4th grade fractions. Okay, last two for today. Now these were not homeworks, and this is what your test is going to look like. It's kind of everything we just did put together. So I'm going to do number 10 for you, or with you, and then I'm going to have you do 11 on your own. So first step, if you remember from last class, we work inside out. Second step, bless you, is horizontal. 3 is vertical. And then what do we do very last? Negative exponents. Same thing. Instead of parentheses, we have a big square root sign. So I'm going to ignore that for a second. And let's just focus on this like we did last class. Just like your little menu page. First of all, 25 over 100. 1/4, right? Don't subtract. We're not subtracting. It's properties of exponents. We're dividing, ultimately. It's 1/4. Now we're going to kind of go variable by variable by variable. So there's nothing to do horizontally, right? There's only one set of x's on the top. There's nothing to combine. There's nothing. So now we can go vertical, inside out. So if I have 1 x on top and 3 x's on bottom, how many are going to cancel? 1 of each, right? And how many are left and where are they at? X squared on the bottom. Okay, there's 4 y's on top, and there's 2 y's on bottom. How many cancel? 2 of each. Where are the extras left? So there's a y squared on top. 10 z's on top, 2 z's on bottom. How many cancel? 2. Where's the remainder? Z to the 8th on top. Now, don't forget about the square root sign. It is there. We're just working inside out here. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the very first thing we did in class today. What is a square root the same as if I wanted to raise these all to a power? Not a 2. Square root isn't the same thing as square. Those undo each other. Square root is a 1/2 power. Now we're just back to last class. It's just a fractional exponent. So when I took an exponent raised to another exponent, what did we do last class? We multiplied them. So how many y's are left? Just 1. 2 times 1/2 is 1. Okay? An 8th power raised to a 1/2 power is how many? Z to the 4th over. Now be careful, that's not 4 times 1/2, right? It's properties of what? Exponents. Is 4 an exponent? No, that's 4 to the 1/2 power, also known as the square root of 4, which is 2. And x squared to the 1/2 power is x. There's your answer. All right, give number 11 a go. And here is the final answer.